Hey everyone, in this video, we're going to go over view sets. So we've already in the previous videos gone over different generic views, basic class views, mix-ins, and function views. In this video, we're going to look at how we can combine these two views together and create one view set that handles all the functionality that these two views have. So this first view here does list out all the objects and it creates a new object, and that's at our /artist URL route. And this view down here will retrieve, update, destroy objects, and that's at the artist/ID route. So what this view set will allow us to do is allow us to list out all of our objects, create a new one, retrieve a single object by its ID, update by its ID, and delete or destroy it by its ID as well. And it'll be all combined into one view set. This is very useful if you'd like to create very generic views without needing to write a bunch of code for it. You can do it all within as little as 3 lines. So let's go ahead and get started going over this. So first things first, let's open the documentation and take a look at view sets. So there's a few different classes available to us. We have a view set class, which we could use. We create a class, import view sets, and add our view set, and it has access to our list, retrieve, update, destroy, all those, create, all those different methods we had available in the previous videos. When we created a generic view class, we use our list method or create method. All that's a variable instead of these get, post, put. So I could go ahead and create a new view set by doing class. We'll call this album. I'll create an album this time instead of artist, just so we do something different. I'll do an album view set. So inherit from viewsets.viewset. And now we can go ahead and use those methods. And actually this should be a capital S. And I'll also import that before I go any further so I don't forget. So let's do from REST framework, import view sets. But now we can go ahead and create a view set using those methods. So I could just do like a, whatever, a def list self requests. And I can put whatever I want in here. Return something album dot objects dot all, or whatever I want to do here. I can put that in here, return the object to list out all of our objects. I can also do the same thing for a create, self, and requests. Now I wanted to, I could pass in the custom logic here to create a new object. And I'm not really going to go over how to use those. We've created custom objects and did that up here already. So if you need that functionality, you can look in documentation about how to do it. In most cases, you can probably just use the generic functions and you won't need to do any of this. So instead of focusing on creating a custom view set like this, let's go ahead and focus on a different type of view set. So if you look into the documentation here, we have view set, we have generic view set, and this generic view set gives us some different properties and different objects available, or different functions available, I should say. Or we can go even more generic and we can use a model view set. And this is what you use most often. If you want to go ahead and create and interact with a certain model object you have, this model view set is much easier to use. And so in our case, inside this project, the code will be in the description as well, so you can go there if you'd like to see it. But inside this project here, we have this models file, and we have our artist model, an album model, and a song model. So let's go ahead and create a model view set for this album object. So you can look in the documentation, but we can inherit from this model view set class, and then we can set everything inside of there. So instead of having to create these custom functions like we're doing here, we don't need any of this. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete all of this, and I'll inherit from model view set. And just like we did before on these generic views, we need to go ahead and set a query set and a serializer class. So I'll go ahead and set a query set first, and I'll set this equal to album.objects.all. And then we'll go ahead and set a serializer class, and this will equal our album serializer. We'll need to go ahead and import those at the top here. So up here at the top, from our models, we'll import album, and from our serializers up here, we'll need to go ahead and import album serializer. This is all we need to do to create different views that does the same functionality as these two views. And in case you're not familiar with this, this was done in the previous video, so you can get to that if you'd like to. We can also add our permission classes as well, but for now, to keep it simple, we're going to just keep it to just the required fields, which is query set and serializer class. You could also, if you need some more custom query set logic, you can, instead of using this query set field, you could also use like a def get query set class here, self request. And you have access to this as well. You could return something here if you wanted to. In our case, though, we'll keep it simple and we'll keep it just to this query set property here. And that's all we need for our album view set. It's just 3 lines of code. So it's pretty simple and pretty easy if you don't need anything custom. Now we need to go ahead and create our URL routes for this view set. And we can do that a little bit differently than we did before. So let's go ahead and go to our URLs file and take a look at that. So this will be inside of our music API folder, inside of our URLs file here. So for our artist generic views, we create 2 custom paths. Artists, which will be used to list out all artists and create a new artist, and artist / the primary key or the ID, which will be used to update an existing one, retrieve a specific one, or delete one, all by this ID field being passed in here. For our view sets, we can use a thing called a router. So if we go to the API guide and go to routers, this will be in the description as well, so you can get it there. But we have these different routers, and it talks about some other web frameworks like Rails that does something similar to this. But what we can use is either a simple router or a default router. In our example, we already have a default router set up from our first video, so we'll go ahead and use that. This has a little bit more functionality than the simple router does. You can read up on it here if you want to see the differences, but in most cases, I end up just using the default router. So if you like to use that, you can use that. And of course, there's different ways to customize this, which we won't really go into here, but you can look at this to kind of figure out how to customize things if you'd like to. But for just for general use of this, we'll need to do what we did in the previous video. So first, what we do is we define a new default router, router equals routers.default router, and then we can go ahead and register view sets at different URL patterns on the router. So we'll add another register. So we'll do router.register, and then we can add in r and then a string, and this will be the route that we want to go to. So we'll go to /albums. So we'll add in just albums. And this will automatically add our albums route as well as this int pk route for us. So this is all for us without us having to manually define them down here. Next, we go ahead and add our view set. So to add that, we'll do a views.album view set to get that view set. And with that set up, we should have everything we need to go ahead and test out this new albums route. So we can go ahead and jump into Insomnia. We'll go to localhost 8000/albums. If I send a GET request here, I need to make sure I start my server first. Okay, now with my server running, we can go ahead and test it out. So go back to Insomnia. I'll do a send. And now we get just an empty list because we don't have any albums created yet. I can go ahead and do a post. I can create it now by passing in a JSON body and passing in different fields. Our album model has 2 required fields, title, I'll set to test album, as well as artists that are on the album. So in this case, we'll pass in a list. I'll pass an ID of 1 to put just the primary key of our first artist inside of this list here to put it on this album. I'll send that, and then we see a 201 created. We have an ID of 1, our title, and all of our fields here. If we go back to a get rid of the body because we don't need it right now, and send, now we get back our 1 artist we just created. We can do a put and go to / the ID number, which in this case is 1. So go to album /1 with a trailing slash. We'll add our JSON body back, and we'll go ahead and update this one. Just put updated at the end of it and send. And now we get back a 201 or 200 with it updated. Get rid of our body. We go back to a get. We can do a /album /1. We get that new updated album. If we go to /albums, we get all of our albums. In this case, it's just this one updated album right here. So that's 3 of the 4 functions. Last one we can do is we can go ahead and delete this album. So we'll go ahead and do a delete request. No body is necessary, so we'll get rid of the body. We'll do album / an ID number. In this case, we'll delete this one at the ID of 1. So we'll put 1 with a trailing slash and get back a 204 no content because it did successfully delete it. If you go back to a get request here and we go just to /albums, we now get an empty list. If we try going to /1, we'll get a 404 because it's no longer there. So now with just those few lines of code, we needed 1 here and just 3 here. We've handled everything that we did in these two views, these two class views, as well as these two URL paths. So hopefully you can see how this is very easy to quickly create views without needing to put a bunch of custom functionality if you don't need it in. One important thing to note though is that if we don't use this query set attribute, so instead of doing this, I did something like def get query set. I set the query set here, self requests, and I'll just do return the same thing, I guess, album dot objects dot all. This will now throw an error if I try using this. So if I try to go ahead and send something here, we'll get a 500 error. If you look in the terminal here, you'll see we're getting this error saying that base name argument not specified. So if we jump into the documentation real quick, we can find something about this base name. Let's scroll up here a little bit. Right here. Okay, so the usage in the router's guide here, if it's unset, it'll be automatically generated based on the query set attribute of the view set. So in this case, we don't have a query set view set, a query set attribute. If you look in our code here, we got rid of that. This line right here is the query set attribute. We got rid of that and replaced it with this line right here. So since that's not being automatically set, we need to define that ourselves. And you can see that right here. If it does not include a query set attribute, you must set it when you register the view. So to get around this issue, what we'll need to do is in our URLs, we need to go ahead and add a line right here. So we'll add base name equals, and then whatever we want. I'll just do albums. And now with those changes saved, we should be able to come back here and we'll go ahead and just restart the server. So we'll stop it, rerun it, come back here to Insomnia. We'll send the request. I put request inside the body there. Let's get rid of that. So back in my views here, we'll get rid of this request and it'll just be self. And I'll come back here and we'll try this again. We'll send this, and now we'll get not found because it's not found. If we just do a /albums, we get an empty list again. So now it's working again. So that's just an important thing to note. If this field is not set and you use something like this to customize your view set, you'll need to make sure you add base name onto your router.register line as well. But that's really it. That's all you need to create a very basic view set. There's more and more you can do to customize different things, and you can see a whole section on here on custom routers, and you can get into this if you need anything custom. There's all sorts of things you can do. I'm not going to get into that in this video. I wanted to in this video just create a very quick kind of introduction to view sets and routers to hopefully get you started in using them. And that should include all of our videos on views now. We've covered just about everything: function views, generic class views, different generic views that make it a little easier, and then now view sets to kind of finish all of that up. So that is it for this video. The code will be in the description below, as well as any links to docs or anything else that'd be useful. Hopefully that was helpful, and I hope to see you in the next video.